What's happening, everybody? It's your man Dame DNYDC. It's two mics up. We back with a brand new episode 203. Man, we've been blessed to keep rolling along season 9, and tonight is tonight's a special night, I guess, in a way. I'm really excited about tonight's guest because she brings a plethora, if you will, of hats and helping hands that we really need in today's society and the way that the world is moving and evolving. you know Dr. Dana Holloman is a multi-certified coach. So I want you to listen. Coach, an ordained minister. Okay, we're gonna go to church, y'all. I just want y'all to know this, all right? And she's also the founder of Elevate Coaching and Publishing Services, which is huge. These are things that really touch us in so many different ways, not only through ministry, but through this coaching and elevating yourself. If you want to become a coach and you want to get into some type of publishing, this is the woman that you really want to get in touch with. And we're bringing that to you this evening. And I see some of you coming in. Thank you for joining us. Hey, drop a, let us know where you are in the comments. Hit us up in the comments. We want to welcome you into tonight's conversation. But going back to Dr. Holloman, she really, from my perspective and my view on what I'm really so excited about, is that she empowers purpose-driven women. Women are our foundation, gentlemen, especially in our community, in the Black community. They are, the educators. They're the ones that really help our families elevate. And I'm only speaking as a single Black man, well, as a young Black man raised by a single Black woman. The work that she really put and poured into me to allow me and help guide me to become the man that I am today. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to experience some of that, I believe, in tonight's conversation. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Dr. Dana Holloman. Dr. Holloman, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing great. And again, thank you for having me here today.
Look, it's definitely our pleasure, to really get into this. Bentley, thank you for joining us tonight. Hello. Uh, get comfortable, and we're going to dive in. And before we really can get into the full story, Dr. Holloman, I always have to really just start at the beginning. Who are you, the person, without wearing all of these amazing hats? But who is Dr. Dana Holloman?
Okay, so you want to know who Dana is, or do you want to know who Dr. Dana Holloman
Well,
is?
first of all, let's start with Dana because Dana had to get to Dr. Holloman. But let's start at the roots. Let's start with Dana.
Right. So, okay. So I'm from Norfolk, Virginia, born and raised. Like I went to Booker T. Washington High School. I also went to Old Dominion University. So Norfolk is my stomping grounds. Like everything started in Norfolk for me. Um, you might hear a little country accent. A lot of people ask me, where are you from? I hear a country accent. Then sometimes people say I sound like I'm from the islands. So I really don't know what accent I have. I always say I have a Norfolk accent, but I love Norfolk, Virginia. I think Norfolk really does have a bad reputation, but I want to say a lot of great, successful people have come from Norfolk, and especially from Booker T. Washington High School, class of 2000. So
Okay.
that's a little bit of my high school, my college education, but I am a wife. I am married, and I just recently got married back in August of 2024.
Oh,
I am a newlywed, but
congratulations.
thank you. This is my second marriage. And I say that because a lot of people know me from my story of pain. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And
Mm,
so that's really how I got into this arena of telling my story of how to turn your pain into your passion, how to turn your pain into your purpose because of my
mm,
story with domestic violence. Like, so even before getting married the first time, I experienced domestic violence in a relationship, and we can talk about that a little later because that's how I got into this place of healing and trying to help others to heal. And I just shout out my husband; he's
hey.
watching. um,
I'm glad he's here. That's right. I'm
he's
glad he's
here.
here.
He's a great supporter, so I'm glad he's here. But just being able to share that I'm a wife, you can live again. And I have a book called Life After Divorce. So I'm married. I have two children, an adult daughter. She is 22 years old. And then I have a son
Right.
who's 14 years old. I'm also a
Okay.
grandmother to a beautiful 4-year-old little girl, Amaria, and she is my heart. She's so precious. So outside of being a mother, a wife, I also still work a 9 to 5. I consider myself to be a 9 to 5preneur. I work with Hampton City Schools as an intervention coordinator. I really do enjoy working with teachers, principals, admin, and coming up with interventions for our, what we call our tier 3 students. They're our
Mhm.
at-risk students who may have behavior issues. They also have attendance, chronic attendance problems, and there's some mental health challenges. And so having a background in human service counseling has really prepared me not just in my walk for the secondary world, but for my spiritual
Mm,
assignment that God has placed me on.
I love that, because there's so much to that, like you said, you have one marriage and some people, and it's funny, I'm in my mind I got so much. I was just watching this thing with my wife with uh Ayala, Anyala, and she just wrote this new book, and talking about going through pain, tragedy, loss, and
Mm,
different things like that. And it really peaks for me because when I read up on you and I was looking at some of your work, one of the first things that really stood out to me, um, in your express yourself program.
yes.
Um, for early learners,
Mm,
you use these different tools to help people adapt and help them adapt.
mm,
And you just kind of led into that segue. Can you talk about that? Like, what tools do you use or language when working with children who have maybe a strong cultural or linguistic
yeah.
difference? Because that, and again, it sticks out from that transition from watching her, and then this whole ice situation. Like, it's kind of like the perfect segue into this. And like, how do you just deal with that? Because that's got to be difficult, especially in today's climate.
Yes. So, like I said, my background is in human service counseling. So, working in foster care, I've always worked with youth. I was a foster care caseworker, with therapeutic foster care caseworker. I was a probation officer for juveniles, and then I transferred to the education setting. As the early childhood engagement specialist, I was working at a preschool with very young children. They were all 4-year olds, some as young as 3, and some may have transitioned to being 5 years old. And working with them, I began to witness how they really struggled with
Mm,
expressing their feelings, their emotions. And so a lot of times when they were angry, they would say that they were sad or that they were scared. And we always say little people have big emotions. When I
yeah.
say these 4-year-olds were tearing up the classroom, like they were throwing chairs, they were throwing desks, they were fighting teachers. And I was like, okay, I have to find a way to help them. In this
Mm,
position, I was the first one in the position. So I got to really create the position and make it into my own. And so I decided I was going to make these flashcards. And this is where
mm,
the Express Yourself flashcards came into place. So basically, I would sit with the kids and I'll have these flashcards in front of them, and I would say, "How are you feeling?" And I wanted to keep it simple for them, so I only spoke to them about 5 feelings:
mm,
happy, sad, scared, angry, and excited. Those were the only 5 emotions I wanted to talk to them about. And so being able to teach them not just about what happy is, but then teaching about the other vocabulary words, other synonyms for happy, or other synonyms for being angry. So sometimes I might say I'm angry today, but I might be frustrated. So
Mm,
then we began to teach different meanings of what the words meant. So the flashcards, of course, illustrated what it looks like to be angry, but it's good to learn the feelings and the emotions that they're feeling, but what do we do with it? So that's where the
yeah.
self regulation comes into place. And when I'm angry, you know what I can do? I can count to 10, or I can say my ABCs. I can go talk to a friend. And this is what the flashcards taught them, how to regulate their emotions. And I love how when I would go to the classrooms, I would talk to the teachers about these flashcards, and they'll say, Dana, we need these for adults. And but this is why I really got into the children's space, because I realized, being a survivor of domestic violence is because my ex-fiance did not know how to express his emotions when he was angry. So he would become physically aggressive to just be
Mm,
able to communicate, I'm mad at you. You upset me. But if we can teach our 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds, when they get angry, instead of hitting someone,
yes. Yes.
you can take deep breaths. You can just breathe in and out, or
Yep.
you can go outside for a walk. Guess how many domestic violence cases will reduce just because we've taught the younger generation
Mm.
how to
It's
regulate their emotions.
giving them the tools to actually be able to do it, and that's so true. There's so many things that in our community, especially when it comes to those type of things, we tend to normalize.
Yes,
Like you said, domestic abuse. When there's struggles in the home, or alcoholism, or
right,
drug abuse. We normalize that, and it just had me thinking. As a young child, how my mother, we would have conversations.
right,
And her thing, I still hear her. It's been 30 years since she's passed, but I still hear her like yesterday. When you're dealing with a woman, hold the door for her. How you speak to her. Just mannerisms and different things that really hold so true. And to
right,
hear that, because I think that really helped me to adjust. I had my own other baggage as I was growing up. Not having a father, but
right,
that's a whole nother thing. But I think I was well enough adjusted to be able to deal with those things. And look, some people say therapy doesn't work. I'll tell you that it does, but that's a
right.
whole nother conversation. It does.
Yes.
And one of the other things that stuck really struck me. I was reading where you talk about restorative practice
Hmm.
um, for emotional, physical, and mental well-being. Now, Now, how do you track that? I guess is really the question. When I guess the long term impact, say 3 to
Yeah.
5 years later, um, how do you track that? Because that trauma sometimes, I guess, is it's almost like it needs an intervention while you're
Right.
still going through these steps. So, like, how does that work? And could you explain that restorative practice?
So when I think about restorative practice, is meaning that it's pretty much like keyword practice. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't come
Okay.
natural for everyone, but the main thing that you want to do is change the way that you speak. So your
Mm,
conversations sound different. The way that you respond is different. And working in the school system, we're very big, especially in Hampton City schools, we're very big about restorative practices, because what we've learned is everything is a learned behavior.
mm,
So
okay.
sometimes, in order to change our students' language, their behavior, their actions, instead of us working with them, we have to work with the adults. We have to work with the teachers, because the truth is, as adults, we could be triggers for our children. For the, if we trigger them, we provoke them, and even the word talks about provoking. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but
Yeah.
it's so natural because it's learned behaviors. And so when I think about breaking generational patterns, sometimes
Mm,
we respond the way that we respond because that's the way our parents respond. And for
true.
them, it's the way their grandparents respond.
Responded. Mhm.
So tracking conversations, tracking episodes, a reduction of aggressive outbursts. So you can definitely track those restorative practices just by the number of episodes, the way that we respond, the way that we speak, the way that we react to each other. You can track your own
Mhm, mhm,
interaction.
mhm.
Like, okay, you know what? I had 3 outbursts this week. I'm going to reduce that down to 2.
Yeah.
So I think,
Okay. Okay.
we have to really start modeling for our children. I'm a mom, and I'll tell you, when I first got into this field of, helping with emotions and coping skills, I remember, my children, they used to be like, Mom, why are you so loud? Why are you screaming? And I'm like, I'm not screaming. But I came from a household that was loud.
Hey,
you know and for me, that was normal. You talked about normalizing negative behavior because that's what we come from, but it
right.
doesn't mean it's right. And
Mm.
so you
Yeah.
have to be really intentional about change and
Phew.
be able to take that correction, even if it might come from the mouths of babes.
Yeah, it's so true. And I want to say, yeah, Emmanuel, yeah, it's amazing. Cliff, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Capri, yeah, I love this too because this is real talk that's really centered. A lot of these things, like you're saying it, and tell me this because, like, I'm going to use myself as an example. I love my wife. We're both, foreign background. We're both Caribbean, and we have that. But the difference is, so in her household, like I said, when we first got together, I loved it because my household really wasn't that way.
Mhm.
Mine was more reserved. Like, my mother was very low key, and it was one
Right.
of those things. Like, I knew I was about to lose my head. Like, my mother would, like, she'll be talking to you, and then it'd be like her voice would get lower and lower, like, and you're leaning in, like, what is she saying? So that meant that somebody was about to get hurt. Where
Mhm.
at my wife's house, very loud, very elevated comment. So, and it's one of those things, like, when we got together, at first I thought I was in love with it because that was different for me. But then
Mm.
when you start getting into, relationships, like, yo, why are you yelling at me? And, like, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm just talking to you. So,
Right.
like, listening to this is really great. And, like, what are ways, like, because again, you talked about practice. And,
Yes.
like, for us, it was a practice through the grace of God and time, right? That you start noticing these things and you start taking account and notice of these things, and your counterpart or your spouse doesn't like. But when you're
Right.
dealing with clients, like, are there any tools or anything that you work with them? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, that you think is cute early on, because it's something that maybe you didn't have, but then it really becomes irksome in a relationship, because that's what it was at one point, more so for me than her. But, like, are there tools or practices that people should do when they're coming across these things? Because, like you said, then it was a bleed down. Because what really made me look was, I'm looking at our daughter,
Right.
and, like, I'm like, I don't want her to think that this is normal in a relationship.
Right.
So is there any practices or things people should do, uh, to practice to kind of get out of that rut, of, I guess, desensitizing their children, really? Because as adults, sometimes we already
You're
broke.
watching. Definitely watching.
Yeah.
So before going into the school system, I used to be a fatherhood program manager teaching about healthy relationships to a group of men who, most of them were coming from prison or jail, but they wanted
Mm,
to learn how to co-parent with the mothers of their children. So this was
right.
all about building our men to improve their fatherhood.
Hmm.
In that healthy relationship, we taught from this curriculum called Within My Reach. And I love that curriculum because it really set the foundation of communication. And the truth is, communication is the key to everything. It doesn't matter what type of relationship you're in, a mother daughter relationship, husband wife relationship, communication is so important. And some of the keys that I've learned, and I even began to implement in my coaching sessions with whether it was my couples coaching clients or individuals coaching sessions, was you speak to be understood and you listen to understand.
Mm,
And the truth is, a lot of times when we talk, we just want to get our point across,
yeah. Yeah.
and then we only listen enough to
Yeah.
respond.
Gone.
And
Yep.
so the communication gets lost because nobody is understanding is the message that's being conveyed in this conversation. So when you
Mm-hmm.
speak to be understood, you're taking your time, you're sticking to the subject at hand, and that's it. You're not going off track, or you're not bringing in
That's right.
something that happened 2 weeks ago. You want to stay focused to the topic,
Yep.
and that's it.
Yeah.
But you also
Right.
want to keep it short within a certain time frame, because the truth of the matter is in 2026, a lot of us have developed ADHD.
Okay.
So it's
That's
hard for
true.
us to focus.
That's
So
true.
that's how it is when it comes to the speaking. And then when it comes to the listening, you're taking your time to respond. You're not just listening enough to give an answer back and
Mm-hmm.
defend yourself, but you're actually taking the time to listen to the message. And so you're giving that time to respond. And then the other thing of what you spoke about, um, the timeout is another tool that I teach.
Hmm.
Sometimes we can be so angry and upset that we say anything that comes to
And that comes
mind.
to
But
mind. Yeah.
sometimes you have to say, you know what, I need to come back to this conversation. So give
Mm-hmm.
me about 15 minutes and I'll be back. Now, with the timeout method, you have to remember that this is not something that you leave lingering for days. Like,
Mm.
I say within 24 hours, you should go back to that person, because a lot of people don't understand that withdrawal can be a sign of abuse. So if you give
Oh.
anybody
Okay.
quiet, the silent treatment, that can be abusive. How
Wow.
emotional. A lot of people don't understand that.
Wow. Oh boy, you just touched my nerve. And I don't. And no, you serious? Because that's the Taurus in me. Like I know for me, I need longer than most
Mhm.
sometimes
Yeah.
because we tend to be very explosive. We tend to be. I'm going to end this conversation now. I'm going to end it forever. And we have that type of tongue. So now that I understand that I'm being abusive,
Mhm.
I still, and this is the beauty of it, because we all still have things to work on.
Right. We
No
all do.
matter, no, always, no matter how old we get. And that's why it's very important, I think, to have this conversation. Exactly, Emmanuel, like very informative information here. And again, like I said, I was listening to her, I felt like she was talking to me, like literally you were talking directly to me. So I mean, that's great. And you talked about the school settings earlier,
Mhm.
and it has me thinking about, like you talk about scaling programs.
Right.
um you've expressed, like, your deep interest in it, but what type of systems or even partnerships, because I think that has to be a key element, um when you're doing this, have you found to be maybe the most challenging, in your time doing this? Because I think that's an aspect a lot of us, parents and
Mhm.
individuals coming to the school, we don't see a lot of the behind the scene mechanisms and the challenges. We're just coming for the program. So can
Right.
you kind of express some of the challenges and stuff that maybe you've experienced, while putting these programs in place?
Yeah, so we do have partnerships in the school system. Mental health is really big right now. I'm not just going to say it in the school district that I'm employed with, but all throughout the nation, mental health is important. If you think all the way back to these school shootings, taking the time to speak to these students, what led up to you wanting to go into a school to kill people? It wasn't because
Mm,
they were just, wanting to kill somebody. Most of them were coming from a place of hurt,
yeah.
pain, anger, because they were bullied, because someone rejected them. And these are the feelings that they had no one to talk to about. Like, they had no one to, not even feeling comfortable to go to the school counselor. So yes, we've had school counselors in the schools for years. But let's think about the school counselor's role. Their
Mm,
role is not mental health. And a lot of people get that confused. Their role is to help our students with education. What's your next career path? Like, what do you want to do? What school do you want to go to after you finish high school? And yes, they do social emotional learning to talk about responsibility and decision making, things like that. But their job is not to get deep into mental health. So that's where our partnerships with maybe the community service board comes in, because we might need therapists to come into the school to work with our students.
mm,
Um, so that's some of the partnerships, some of the things that goes on behind the scenes. Some other things is that we do require teachers to come up with interventions. Like suspensions, it happens, but that's not
Right.
always the first step. So a kid gets in trouble in class. A lot of times parents are thinking, "Oh, you just suspended my kid. You don't want my kid in the classroom or in the school." No, we are actually putting support in place for our students, interventions in place, coming up with strategies like I just spoke about, flashcards maybe for our
Mm-hmm.
younger kids, but for our older kids who don't want to look at a flashcard, we gotta a little bit deeper of what we can do for them to actually help them, to also help support our teachers. So we do have a lot that goes on behind the
Mm.
scenes.
See, and there you go. Like exactly, Cliff. I think, you know, especially from more so probably our, being little older generation. I don't know what you were in school, like for real though. I thought my guidance counselor was certified, like as a therapist, like for real. Because I think I talked to my guidance counselor probably more so than anyone else that
Right.
was staff outside of a teacher. So I'm like Cliff, like yeah, like and now to hear this, and that's why I say it's important, and I'm honored to have this conversation because we need to shed a light on these things. Like the more information and the more that we know, the more tools that we have, the better informed we are, the better choices and decisions we can make, not only for ourselves, but for our kids. And that's really important because
Right.
this struggle out here is real. Just it's crazy enough of what's going on in the world. They're being attacked by social media and what's going on with our local government and our government. It's just so much going on. And
Mhm.
I want to transfer because you too, like your background, foster care, I believe criminal justice. I read somewhere like Dr. Holloman is really deep, but I want to ask you like all of those experiences because then there has to be some type of something maybe specifically influenced you
Yeah.
to really want to do one coaching model maybe or exercise um more so than others, or maybe it's your go-to that you find to be familiar with most clients. If there is one or two, could you kind of take a moment and share that with us? What maybe a one-on-one, if I'm coming to you, may look like.
So are you talking from like a student's perspective or like one of my clients for my coaching
Let's
adults?
get to let's get into the coaching adults. Let's
Okay.
move into the adult space for a moment.
Mhm. So the different types of coaching that I provide relationship coaching, for individuals who may have anxiety when it comes to relationship trauma, due to my experience with domestic violence and coming up with coping skills to be able to cope through, whether they're still in those situations or they found a way to get out of it and now they're trying
Mm,
to find a way to heal, because sometimes that brokenness is so deep, like you don't want to trust anybody else. You don't want to get into another relationship, and that's not healthy. Like we were all meant to be with someone. God wants us all to have a partner in life, but sometimes heartbreak kind of like prevent those things from happening. So being able to get over that hurdle. So I have the relationship coaching program that I have, and then I have also individuals, they do come to me just to I have my publishing, and so a lot of women do come to me when they are ready to write their book. Now my niche is still the same. I still want to help those who are ready to turn their pain into their purpose and they have a story to tell. So while they're in this publishing program and they're writing a book, guess what
mm,
else? I'm also providing the coaching for the healing, because sometimes it's not enough to just tell your story and you're still stuck in that story. God
I
wants to
love that.
release you from it and move you forward. So that's really the approach I take with all of my clients. One way or another, there's going to be healing for your heart, whether you are still grieving loss. Like I
Mm-hmm.
lost my parents, and so I lost both my parents. I know how it feels to lose your loved one, your mom, your
Mm-hmm.
dad, or anyone
Mm-hmm.
else. But
Mm-hmm.
also that grief that comes with divorce, separation, like that grief is real and it's just
Real.
like death.
Mm.
So being able to get over those feelings of heartbreak.
I really love that. And I just, this out of curiosity, was that was that by, I don't want to say happenstance, but through your journey, one of those things where a light went off for you and said, "Hey, this may not, if it's working for me, or you see a way that it helps you." And 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 how is that? Like, I just have to actually look at it. It fills me with joy just listening, working with people and then directing them through their pain, and to be able to write a story and tell a story. How therapeutic one has that been for you, but then to now watch others and go through their journey? Like, how is therapeutic has that been for you?
So everything that I offer through Elevate is because of my experience in life. I'm happy to say that, a lot of times people don't want to go to therapists because they feel like, oh, they don't understand my pain, they don't know what I go through, or went through. They can't help me with something that they know nothing about. But with me, not only do I have the education to help in these areas of mental health and counseling, but I also experienced it. So
Yeah.
it's not that I'm happy that I experienced these things. And trust me, I questioned God faithfully. Why me, Lord? Why me? Why me? And I got that typical answer, why not you? And this is what I want you to do with it. So me being able to experience the pain that I went through in life, relationships, death, divorce, and God be able to turn it around. So it was a, if God can do this for me, heal me and bring me through this, then I know that God can do it for you. And I am here to help you. I will hold your hand through the process. But it
Yeah.
does begin with forgiveness,
Yeah.
having to forgive. But also with forgiveness, it's a lot of times people feel like you forgive and you let go. There's no more thought of it. No, that's not true. Our forgiveness, of course, is for us, but we're also to learn from it. So
Yeah.
setting new boundaries so we don't keep making those same mistakes over and over again. So we can be able to release those patterns that we may have, walked into, that put us in those positions in the first place. And
Mm.
so I like to be an accountability partner for my client because it's hard doing making those tough decisions by
Decision
ourselves.
for yourself. That's right. Oh
Yeah.
man, listen, Dr. Holloman is really. I mean, I like. I'm just blown away. Like, I have million and one question, but this part is what I love in being able to do this. Elaine. Good evening, Elaine Crocker. She reaching out to you, Dana. She said, she had her nonprofit goes into Stafford County, Virginia schools and facilitate workshops with high schoolers on mental health well being. Um, I'd like to talk to you about sometime if you're interested. So this is what I love about this, being able to share this platform and highlight, like we talk behind stage, people like yourself, and to have such a great community that watches and follow us, but we can make connections, and really see this thing really come to life, brick by brick, block by block, community by community. And this right here is a perfect example of that. So Elaine, we're going to allow Dr. Holloman to share her social media information, and you guys can definitely please connect. And hey, look, don't leave me out. I want to, if I can help, please let me know. You guys, this is going to be a tremendous thing, I believe, in the future. And yes, yeah, she bad. She bad. Dr. Holloman is bad. You got that right, Rick. She bad is all get out. And no, we don't do that here. So please, if you're gonna come in, be grown, be an adult, keep it professional. This is not the place for everyday jogging and being out on the street corner. So let's be adults here and be respectful. Um, I want to transition though, Dr. Holloman. One of
And
the things that we all. Hmm?
just to respond to Elaine, if she wants to go to my website,
Hmm?
elevatecap.com, it's under my name. She can reach
Okay.
out and just contact me via the contact tab.
And no problem. I mean, I have Elaine. We follow each other. So Elaine, one or
Okay.
two things: I either reach out to you with her information, or I will go ahead and make sure I put that in the show notes as well. And if you want to go ahead and get her information from the show notes, but we'll make sure you guys get together and make this work. Uh, yes, sir, Mr. Holloman. Don't worry about it. No, I'm driving the bus tonight. We're gonna go ahead and take care of that, sir. Don't worry about it. I'll be putting the pause on people tonight. Thank you. Uh, I want to transition though. Um, we're bombarded with this AI movement now,
Mhm.
and for young children, like how do you envision this technology? Um, you know, recognition tools or
Mhm.
or even maybe potentially educational apps, because I think there is a role and a space for it.
Right.
But how do you see it playing a role, like positive or negative, in supporting or disrupting your mission and what it is that you're doing, moving forward?
So that's a good question. Initially, I want to say that schools were against chat AI.
Mhm.
Like, they felt like the kids were going to cheat on their exams. They weren't going to really be learning. But now they have found a way to be able to implement AI into the classroom and use chat so that it's more beneficial than negative. Of course, you just have to put boundaries in place and stipulations in regards to how to use it, when to use it, because we want our children to learn. So, how does AI affect my job and what I do? Not at all. Listen, chat can be your counselor, okay? But there's
Mhm.
nothing like the real thing, okay? I use AI, I use chat to be able to clean up my emails like a virtual assistant. But at the end of the day, when I really need to talk to someone, I pick up the phone and I call someone that I can trust and that I can speak to. Someone who has a heart. AI does not have a heart. AI does not have emotions. I don't care what AI says
Mhm.
to you. So just being able to use discernment when it comes to AI and chat. But
Right.
I do think it is beneficial for our youth to use because that is the direction that we're going into. And so we do have to keep up with technology to be able to move forward, especially when it
Right.
comes to employment for our youth. We don't want to tell them, no, don't use it. And then when it's time for them to find a job, they can't keep up. So we
Mhm.
have to teach them how to use it, when to use it, and like I said, use discernment when it comes to it.
Mhm. So then there's another side, I guess, and to this that like I was sitting listening to you and thinking about the conversation, kind of took me back to my child because one of the things, I mean, I was a pretty decent student, but I got bored easy. So my mind wandered, and sometimes I was the class clown and things of that. And there was this, the parent teacher conference, right? So
Mhm.
coming from that traditional sense and listening now, like talking about AI and how things are moving and changing, if you could redesign, let's just say, this traditional parent teacher conference model through the
Okay.
lens of um, emotional wellness
Mhm.
um, and trauma, right? Because coming from your background, what would that meeting look like and sound like? If you could redesign that.
Okay, let me make sure I understand your question clearly. If I could redesign our parent teachers conferences, and and are you talking about with the chat? Are we still talking about chat right now, or we
No,
moved away
no,
from that?
we want to move away from that. I want to go through the lens of like, since you're coming from a space of like, let's say, emotional wellness,
Mhm.
and trauma informed care.
Right.
What would that
Okay.
meeting maybe look like? You know, from that perspective.
Okay, so from that perspective, and I'm glad you brought up the trauma informed care because, of
Hmm.
course, we're to always address everything with our trauma lens. And when I say with our trauma lens, that
Hmm.
just means basically we're to treat everyone as if they've experienced some type of trauma, whether you heard
Hmm.
about it or not. The truth of the matter is, a lot of teachers were discriminating, even though they didn't know it. And I'm not talking about with race, but I'm talking about when it comes to certain students, when it shows favoritism. So your favorite student, because they have all A's and B's, they sit in the front of the class, they're always on time. They may get treated a little bit different because you feel like they show up, they give more effort than the student that comes late, doesn't have their pencils, not prepared, classes, failing their classes. So putting your trauma lens on is saying, you know what, this student is really struggling right now. I wonder what's going on, but right now I don't know what's going on. So let me just pretend something is going on at home. And if I pretend something's going on at home, I'm going to show more compassion.
Mm,
So you think about compassionate schools. There's a curriculum actually called Compassionate Schools because as it sounds like showing compassion should be easy, but it's not.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
if I could recreate the way parent teacher conferences were, it would start there.
Mm,
Teachers
yeah.
showing compassion to every single person, no matter where they're from, no matter what grades the students are getting, you know, focusing not just on the negative, but being able to share the positive. Like you hear people say when you're going to share something negative, you're supposed to share at least three positive things before you focus on that negative. Because
Mm,
focusing on the negative can really break anybody's spirit, not just children, but also adults. And
yeah.
so when we're thinking about children, when you think about children and you share their positive strengths before you think about those negatives, you're helping to build them up in the way that we speak to not just the child, but the parents.
Right.
Um, I can say that the relationships between parents and teachers are really strained right now, and there needs to be a bridge to build homes and classrooms so we can all work together. So that's been our biggest challenge, having our parents to trust educators again so that we can all work
Mm,
together as a team.
mm. You know, and you bring up a very good point with that, like building a bridge again and between our parents and our teachers, and Anna, she very good point. Everyone has trauma, and we talked about that. All of us have, but
Everyone, yeah.
sometimes it's hidden. Is we hide it. We
Mhm.
try to work through it like it's normal. But how do we connect that bridge again? Like being that person on that side. Um, you know, what do you say? Because times have changed. Even in the time that you've been working in the industry. So what is the, I guess, the olive branch, if you will, that really gets us back, to some type of lock step, lock arm step, where we're all in queue and in moving in the same direction. What do you think is needed or is missing?
So, one of the things that we do in our district is we actually let our parents know that we're not just concerned about what's going on in the classroom, but we are concerned about what's on in the home environment as well.
Mm,
So I know that a lot of districts, they have their school social workers, they have their school psychologists, and we all know that they are super busy.
hmm,
Our students have disabilities, and so a lot of them have to cater their time to those IEP meetings, right?
hmm, hmm,
So we do need special teams to be able to help our parents because they don't have food to eat or they are experiencing homelessness. And so being able to find those vouchers to find somewhere for them to go.
mm,
When our parents know that we care as educators, they would trust you. It's all about building relationships and building rapport. That's in any area like mental health, therapy. The main thing we learn when we go to school, the first thing that we learn when we go to school is you have to build a rapport with your clients so that they can trust you. And it's
hmm.
the same thing in the educational system. We have to build a rapport with our parents so they can trust us.
And Anne hits it on the head. Many parents are often in denial when a
That is
teacher
so
may address. And again, I think that's a great point. And again, I have to ask you, Dr. Holloman, like how how do we kind of knock that narrative and get our parents to understand this is not, we're not picking on your child. We're not, attacking your child. Like we need to have a conversation. Like I see you smiling because you probably gone through this several
because
times.
I
But
know
how do we do
I'm looking
that?
at Aaron's comment. Many parents are often in denial, and that's true. What I'm
Hmm.
saying, I'm not up here trying to make it seem like the birds and bees are just flying around and it's beautiful. Because trust me, in my position, I get cussed out a lot, right? Because one, because they don't trust me. But
Right.
even when they've learned they can trust me, they are dealing with their own mental health illnesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're not just tackling the kids' mental health illnesses, but we're
Dealing with
also now tackling the parents' mental health
yeah.
illnesses, their trauma, their baggage, emotional baggage. And so we are dealing with a lot of challenges, as Ann mentioned, trauma that's hidden and trauma that's not hidden, that's
Yeah.
right in front of us. So let's see, and no, I'm not
Mm.
picking on the parent.
No parent, no.
What I'm saying is we are dealing with a lot of factors when it comes to working with parents, and that's
Yeah.
just the truth.
Yeah.
That's just the
And
truth. Hmm.
we got our own lives now, and like you said, you got work going on, you got bills going on, God forbid if somebody's sick, whatever it may be, and then you got all of this here that you're dealing with your child.
Hmm.
And right, and yeah, so and you coming in kind of, you're right, because when we're done, I'm going to ask you and to go back to early part of the conversation, because you're right, you're touching on things that we've we've discussed in this evening, but you're right, these are some of the parents ancestry, their background,
It's
their
a lot of
history, and
factors.
it's a lot of factors that really
Yes.
play into it. But I do want to go back to, Elaine also said, I feel like, so many parents don't know what to do, and sometimes they just give up because they lack the understanding of their kids mental and emotional health, which again we talked about. And again, I'm glad that you do what you do because you provide a service, for parents as
Right.
well, to really help get
Mhm.
themselves together so that they have the tools to be able to then work with their children, which is extremely needed in today's society, especially again under the scrutiny that we've been. Yeah, and so she's seen it there's so many times being an oncology nurse. So
Right. The
there's a
parents
whole
are
lot
stressed.
going on. Yeah,
They
there's
are
a whole lot.
stressed. They are stressed, and that's why they do need our help. They need our support. But you asked about the challenges, and to be honest, that is the biggest challenge,
Hmm.
is being able to help the parents to understand that we are on their side, that we're not
Yeah,
against them. But a lot of them are fearful.
yeah,
Why? Because guess what? Somebody may have called CPS on them before. So
yes,
now they will never trust an educator because I can't trust you because I was betrayed 5 years ago,
yeah,
and you're a teacher, you're an educator, so I'm not going to trust any of you. They have trauma even in the school setting. They have their own trauma from when they were kids with
yeah,
teachers of why
yeah,
they can't trust. It's
yeah.
it's too many factors out there that I can't name them all of why we have so many challenges with parents, and that's why we do the assessments that we complete,
Hmm.
because we want to get a better understanding. We want to understand the root cause of what's going on. A child with truancy issues,
Yeah.
they can't get themselves to school at 5 years old. So if a 5 year old is missing school 4 days
What's
out of
behind
five
it?
days,
What's
I'm
the
not
thing
looking at the
behind it?
child, I'm looking at the parent.
Hmm.
What's going on with the parent that the parent can't get their child to school
Yeah,
every day?
yeah.
And then
And
that's
look,
where the root cause is, and that's what we need to address.
agreed. And that's what I say. And not I didn't mean to be short. I hope I wasn't. You're bringing up great points and great questions. To add to the conversation. But I just wanted to just highlight. I don't want to hold up the conversation either to kind of retrace. But please continue to drop your comments because they are greatly appreciated and they're great points. Um, but we're
And we
here
were
at the
actually agreeing with you, Ann, about the
yes, we're
trauma.
agreeing with you. Yeah, we're agreeing with you. Yeah,
Not
two hundred
sure.
percent, two hundred
Yeah.
percent. But we're time flies, and we're coming to the back end of this conversation.
Mhm.
And I have to before we go, I always like to look ahead. The same way we started at the beginning, with you, there's always a future,
Mhm.
looking ahead. And from this conversation, your goal is really to reduce generational trauma, right? And
Mhm.
that's vast. And I'm just thinking as we're talking, that's what it appears to me. And I just want to make sure I'm on the right track with this.
Right.
And I want to ask you then, like I said, looking at the future, what would you like consider a moonshot outcome
Mhm.
for your vision in 10 years? Let's put it out because I'm a big person putting it in the universe. If you don't speak it, it ain't gonna happen. If you know what I'm saying, you got to put it out there for God to hear to make it happen. So what's the outcome, the big outcome for you in the next 10 years? And are there any steps, or have you even started thinking about what steps you believe that you have to take to make it happen?
So my what I would like to see in 10 years, whether it's me or somebody else, I want to see more programs, not just in the school settings once they get the public schools, but even at the daycare, in the daycare settings, the preschool settings, early learning. That's I really feel like that is our target um, generation that we need to hit on. The truth is, by the time our kids get to middle school, and that's where all of the programs are at in middle school, a lot of times that's too late. High
Mm,
school, that's too late. They have already began to experience and try to figure out what their identity is. They're fighting who they should be because they have these friends that they're following. They have peer pressure. They have temptation. So we have to help them to develop their character where they're strong enough to fight against that temptation in the classroom, where they have been able to develop the character of being able to express themselves in a healthy way, meaning
mm-hmm,
that self regulation, the emotional regulation. So that's what I want to see. I want to see more programs in the early learning setting to be able to teach our kids how to appropriately and in a healthy way learn about emotions and express
mm,
themselves. And if you didn't know, like I ask all the time, the special education coordinator with my district, are the numbers for autism going up? Because is the numbers or the children in the early learning classes are showing so many signs of autism is
oh,
crazy. And
wow.
what she told me was it's not really that the numbers are going up. We're seeing a lot of kids who are experiencing social isolation. I always said
Mm.
COVID. I feel like COVID was some kind of alien that came from outer space and just did
Yeah,
to
yeah,
our children and to the adults.
yeah.
But since COVID, our children have really struggled and suffered with learning how to socialize with their peers and how to socialize with other,
Mm.
not just other, but adults as well.
So
So
that's
they
a
are
good point.
struggling in the classroom, and actually still seeing the the remnants of what happened from COVID
Yeah,
2019.
yeah. I mean that's so powerful and impactful, and it's really food for thought. And you have really educated us and so much information this evening. I thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Holloman. It's been a true pleasure in having you here with us tonight. But before we go, one, I want to leave you a space. If there's anything that I did not ask you that you feel is helpful and impactful to tonight's conversation, I want to give you a second to take a moment and share that. If there's anything that you feel that I didn't ask that you want to share.
Thank you. No, just really, like you said, my emphasis has always been on healing, not just focusing on the trauma that happened to you or the trauma, um, being trauma informed care, but actually being able to heal from trauma. Yes, healing is no time frame on it. Like it
Mm,
really can take years to heal. I myself, who have my own healing journey, I've been in a cycle where sometimes I am good 100%, but sometimes I'm not feeling it. And that's me
mhm.
as a professional, but me as a human being. We all have a heart. We are all human. We all experience life in different ways. So let's not be judgmental of how people heal from trauma. And let's just lend a helping hand.
I love that, and I thank you. And Elaine, Elaine, you here. You come with another nugget. It's a very, very important piece that we didn't discuss. All the online interaction, games along with social media. We talked about the AI aspect, but social media as well has had a negative impact on kids, their socialization. Uh, like you said, with COVID and everything else, people
Hmm.
become so desensitized and isolated. These factors that Elaine speaks of, they've got to be, two or three other levels on top of everything else that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And it's really become hard for our kids and parents to shake and kind of get back to what was a norm,
And
And you know, I
that's a
mhm.
podcast by itself, honestly. Like, what games social media has actually done to our brains. Like, there
Yeah,
is research the impact of social media on the brain, as well as these games that our kids are playing.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, so true. Listen, that's a whole nother conversation, but Dr. Dana Holloman, it's been an incredible conversation with you this evening. And before you go, just please,
Hmm.
and Elaine, if you're still on, I'm going to ask Dr. Holloman to share her social media information and her website information. So, Dr. Holloman, take it nice and slow. I want to make sure, again, though, I'm going to get it to Elaine one way or the other. But
Yeah.
I want to give you opportunity to share with everyone that's watching, and right now, and for those on the playback. And like I said, I'll make sure I put it down in the show notes.
Yes, you can find me. My website is Elevate, and there is a eight in the word Elevate. So it's ELEV, the number eight TE CAP.com. CAP stands for Coaching and Publishing. So I have both coaching and publishing services for my clients. If you are ready to tell your story of how you were able to go from a place of pain to a place of purpose and power, please contact me. I will help you publish your book for
Mm.
self published authors. And you can find me on social media, Facebook, Coach Dana W.
Whew. Powerful people, powerful. And this is what we do here at Two Mics Up. I want to thank everybody for watching. My co-host here tonight, Cliff. I appreciate you jumping in, and you never lie, bro. This right here was much needed, a much needed here. I thank you. Hey man, look, thank you uh for your support, and I want to thank everybody just for taking time out, because I think this was one that you needed to hear. And if you know someone, and this is where it's critical, everyone, if you know someone or you can think of someone who maybe needs to hear this or needs to watch this or needs to reach out to Dr. Dana Holloman, please go back. You can watch the playback of this on our YouTube channel at Two Mics Up. You can watch it here on Facebook at Two Mics Up. You can watch it on LinkedIn at my personal page, Damon Cunningham. So please make sure you go ahead and share this information and ask you do self-publishing. So just to make sure, yes, Dr. Holloman does do self-publishing. And so if that's something that you want to do, I hope you were listening, but if not, I will have it in the show notes, and you can get in contact with Dr. Holloman, and she's your point of contact, your POC, right here on Two Mics Up. Uh, Thank you so much, Emmanuel, my brother. I appreciate you, man. Continue being the support of this beacon that we have in our community, because we have so many gems here in the DMV area, and I'm just honored and I'm able to bring this to all of you. So listen, before we go, I just want to leave you all just with a couple of things. Tonight, this conversation has been nothing short of powerful. And I mean powerful. And it's been moving for me. Having Dr. Holloman join us has truly been an honor. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. As a multi certified coach, y'all, because if you didn't catch it in the beginning, ordained minister, because she laying hands, well, not laying hands, but she laying hands of the Lord, all right, because sometimes we need that.
Mhm.
And the founder of Elevate Coaching and Publishing Services. I mean, this is a full encompassing movement that we a lot of times overlook and don't even realize we have in our own backyards. Now you all are aware, and you have the opportunity to take advantage or take advance this opportunity to really go ahead and make it your own. But more importantly, what I really like is that Dr. Holloman continues to inspire purpose-driven women. As I said in the beginning, as a girl dad, and being raised by a single black woman, they are the foundation of everything that has gone on and takes place in our homes and in our community. And she should be honored, and our women should be honored. So make sure that you do that. But what's more important is that she elevates their lives through intentional coaching, transformative training, and the power of publishing. All right. And I'm driving this home. So please, whatever you do, remember to move forward in all you do. And you must first feel it to heal it. And I thank you, Dr. Holloman, again. I'm your host, Damon Cunningham. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in and for listening with an open heart and for continuing to support. This conversation that we hope that helps to uplift you, help you evolve, and empower you, not just for today, but for the future. Like we do at the end of each and every show, ladies and gentlemen, until we speak again, I'm going to leave you with a few things. May you all stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.
Thank you.
007.